right, welcome to our second review of the evening, and it is Zotrix Solar Division for the Nintendo Switch, which means Galax will be enlightening us as to what this game is and how it functions, specifically on the Nintendo Switch. He has many opinions about that. So, without further ado, take it away.
So the game is Zotrix Solar Division. You play as a member of the Solar Division, defending a variety of space stations. Specifically, there are like 15. There might be more, but I literally could not get through the whole game in the amount of time allotted. But I don't think so if they're their bonus. You're defending them from the alien Zotrix. Hence the name. So this is a fairly standard tower defense game with the only thing you really have the ability to do is build towers. There is a series, there's like one of the kinds of towers you can build on some stages is like a fighter thing and then beacons to direct the fighter around, but I didn't get to any of the stages that let you mess around with that much. Like I said, there are 15 space stations. Each space station has 3 different missions, of which you have to complete the first 2 to unlock the next space station. And there are, for each one, you can also play on a variety of modes. The classic one, which they have various things, like some of them have a object that you can't let the enemy deal too much damage to. Some of them, the enemy just, I mean, most of them are pretty standard. There's a mode where you can use any tower on any stage, because that's one of the big things in the classic mode is that you're limited to certain towers for each stage. There's a mode where everything goes backwards. There's a mode where you start with the maximum number of resources to build things, because otherwise you start with a set amount of money and earn interest on whatever you don't use to build every turn, and you also get money from blowing up enemies. There's a mode where you can only build a certain number of towers to complete the mission, and there's an endless mode, and those are all available on everything. The maps are all interestingly different. However, what I've set up to this point, and you get to see clearly before you even start what path things will go through the level, even if there's multiple possible paths, so you can plan things out very concretely. Unfortunately, there are several problems here, most of which make it a slog. The first thing is there are a lot of different design. There are like 5 or 6 different roles. Let's see, there's scouts, rowers, grasshoppers, space dogs, bulls, catchers, hellraisers, and destroyers of the enemy ships. But for each of those roles, there are like 8 to 10 different designs of scouts, and rowers. The later ones only have a few designs, and they're notable by their size. But ultimately, the effect of this is that you can no longer tell what a thing is by looking at it, because there are so many things that look the same but function differently. Because of the towers you can build, there are towers that are more efficient against scouts or do more damage against scouts or rowers or space dogs. There are ones that slow down grasshoppers more, and like missiles and continuous lasers work better on catchers and bulls. But again, like, some of that is just, unless you play the game for long enough that you'll learn like all of the different designs for scouts or whatever, you're not likely to actually really be able to take advantage of that much, which I think is a significant flaw. Also, the fact that one of the fairly earlier towers that you have access to in most missions is one that slows down up to 4 enemies at once for a short while. Kind of usually, unless you're going for a high speed, which there are leaderboards, I guess, so that's probably part of it. But slowing down the enemy's movement, pretty harsh for a while. so that your actual damaging towers can get in more damage seems to be a pretty effective strategy, at least on the easier difficulty levels. I played mostly on the easier difficulty levels because tower defense games get difficult for me quickly. So I wanted to try to experience as much of the game as possible. Another significant issue is due to the fact that it is on the Nintendo Switch. This is as a tower defense game, I think tower defense games usually are kind of optimized for pointer and mouse or keyboard controls. I won't say that.
It can also work well on mobile devices.
Or with a touchscreen, which this does have a touchscreen, and you can use it sometimes but unfortunately, it's also zoomed way out so you can see every entire map at all times, which means that, especially in handheld mode, the actual grid squares and stuff are very small. So touchscreen isn't always great for placing. Analog stick is also not very great for placing because it's very sensitive. So I found myself using the D-pad or left Joy-Con D buttons for placing things a lot. And just the set of controls needed to actually place something in this game are a lot. So you have to, if you're focused on the map, you have to click the little left trigger to get back to the box with the things that you can build. Then you have to click down on, you have to select the thing with the left stick or left buttons. Then you have to click down on the stick to select the thing you want to build. Then you have to click the left trigger to go back to being on the map. And then you have to go to where you need to go with the stick or the D-pad or buttons. And then you need to push the right trigger to actually build it. So that's more buttons than you should have to press to build a tower in a tower defense game. Similarly, a lot of things, you have to use the right trigger to cycle through sections of a menu and then use the D-pad or D-stick or stick or D-pad or D buttons to select options in that menu. To upgrade a thing on the map, you also have to go over it, press the R button, and then you can upgrade with a button or sell with another button. So it just seemed really clunky to play, and because I assume they knew that, the default mode of playing the game is that you only get a new wave when you specifically call one with the by selecting an option on the menu that the right stick is only able to access, which has things like the grid lines, a speed graph that shows how fast the enemies move at various parts of the stage, and one of them is next wave, and above that there is an automatic waves button that will just keep sending waves. But by default, you basically have as much time to build stuff in between waves as you want, which makes the play slower and also kind of hurts tension. Also, I didn't realize this until playing it today, but apparently this is basically always online because of the leaderboard. So, like, if it gets disconnected from the server or the server's under maintenance, you can just have to leave a menu or leave a mission like 3/4 of the way through it. Also, I only got through like the first 3 space stations on the first 2 missions of each one, and the number of waves escalated very quickly, so I'm concerned if that continues, because like the first one was like 5, the second one is 10, the third one is 15, the fourth one is 20, and if it just keeps going like that, especially since the waves are not super differentiated, it just seems like it would take forever to get through things if that continues, and if not, they'll be having to come up with lots of other ways to do difficulty, which at least there are interesting scenario play here, like with the different limitations on what you can build and different limitations on what you have to protect. But it doesn't really, just the whole thing altogether seems awkward, and it seems like this is a game that you'd have to play for a really long time to get used to it and like get to the point where you can kind of enjoy the controls. And the gameplay doesn't make you want to spend that much time on it, to me. So it's not worse than a pretty basic tower defense thing, and the aesthetic is interesting. There's a computer voice that talks to you, and some of the text is definitely not written initially in English, so that can be a little bit amusing if you like that kind of thing, but I can't give this a very strong recommendation. Adam, do you know how much this normally is? I can check on the eShop. I can just go to that.
On Steam, it's listed at $14.99.
I would recommend waiting for a discount of like more than 50% then.
Also worth noting, on Steam, you can get the Zotrix bundle, as this is as you can get this with the original Zotrix game. Not exactly sure if that's a tower defense, but it is here. That game's a lot cheaper, like $5 I'm seeing, or no, it's 12. It's just the bundle here is really cheap if you get them together. $19.58.
So yeah, there are some interesting things here, and it looks like one way or another it's on. I can't see the actual price because I already have it on this eShop, but it's on sale on the Switch currently. So if you're into tower defense, it's not like super terrible, and there are some clever ideas, but just overall, I found it very awkward and hard to get into. Do you guys have any questions?
Not on my end.
Not really.
Me neither.
Okay, well, unfortunately, I guess I have to leave it at that because it was so slow and plodding, I couldn't get more of it played.
This would be one of those possible recommendations to see by getting the PC version over the Switch version.
I would check and see if there's another version. Like, I would probably recommend another version of this just because if you have, like, clicking and right-clicking, that seems like it would be, yeah.
Once again, it is on the PC. I'm on the Steam page.
Yeah, if you can,
just,
like... Yeah, if you had more click and drag and right click, that would probably. I don't know what the PC control scheme is like, but it is very likely to be better than the one on the Switch.
I'm imagining it's going to be a very conventional point and click affair. Can't confirm that because nobody here got the PC version of this. This is why we tend to designate if we're doing a specific version of a thing, like because it can have an effect. Anyway, so
yeah, unfortunately, that's where I have to leave it. I can't say anything better about it than that.
Well, so it goes. You know? I mean, we come up against this all the time. Like, most of the games we review have multiple versions, that have presumably differences in terms of, like, control. Some more pronounced than others. It just, we're usually reviewing the PC version, or if that's not available, the PlayStation 4 or Switch. And you take into account the platform you're reviewing on it, and you soldier on forward.
Yeah, looking at the trailer, it's looking like this is mouse-driven on PC, which, if that's the case, go for that.
Once again, I'm not surprised. I would be more surprised if it was driven like it was with the Switch version. Because why would you do that?
Indeed.
Something
I mean, I
sadism.
guess it means that it definitely has a at least somewhat competent controller setup if it uses the same one, but competent doesn't mean comfortable or quick. It just means you can do everything that way.
Right. You would have thought that they would have taken more advantage of the touchscreen.
Again, you can do some things with the touchscreen, but just literally the individual grid squares are smaller than any of my finger touch thingies, so I mostly didn't do that, but it might help. But even then, you can't right-click with a finger.
True enough. It's like I'm just thinking back to tower defense games on iOS, of which there are very many. They tend to work fairly well, but then again, they don't have to deal with right clicking and stuff.
Right. I don't know. It just because there are a lot of things. Once you have something installed, you have to click on it again to level it up. So presumably that would be either a click and hold or something. Also, I really kind of wish you could zoom in on the Switch version. I don't know if you can zoom in on any version of this, but you can't. By doing the the usual multi-touch, just poke it and spread your fingers apart.
Right, pinch to zoom and stuff. It just sounds to me that they half-heartedly took advantage of the touchscreen.
I mean, I didn't try it as fully, so I don't know. Maybe if they did, then there is no tutorial for how to touch screen. I discovered that the touch screen worked by trying to, when there's a button for press A to go back to command room, press Y to restart mission, press X to there was some other option, and I touched on one of the buttons that are laid out above it, and it worked. So if you do try it, and I'm wrong and the touchscreen thing is super well implemented and stuff, I'd be glad to hear about it, but also tell me how you figured that out.
Indeed.
Yeah. Also, you have to you can't just okay, I select one kind of tower and I build here and here and here the same kind of tower. You have to reselect the kind of tower every time, because otherwise you might be trying to upgrade or sell the tower.
Yeah. Anyway, anything else?
That's about all I got. If you guys don't have any more questions.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Seems we've cleared the landing here. All right. So that'll about do it for Zotrix Solar Division. Be sure to tune in after our second break for Degrees of Separation.